You know what time it is. You know what time it is.
How firm thy friendship. Oh, how
you know what time it is. I'm raw with them boys of the fall. You know what time it is. On the ground with a nose for the ball. You know what time it is. Blood, sweat, and them tears for this game. Leaving it all out on the field with no fear for you lames. Yeah, you know what time it is. Come brawl with them boys of the fall. Covered in gray and scarlet, massive, stiff arms to your jaw. We breaking it. We sick of seeing you clowns with the crown. We taking it.
What up, Buckeye Nation? Welcome to the Buckeye Boys, where we talk about college football with real fans. I'm Devin. That's Sam. And we're pumped, man. Got a good show planned for you. I'm laughing because I watched they were kind of getting at me about my intro because I say college football with real fans. So we got a listener who was in the chat saying, I'm excited to come in here and talk with some real fans tonight. And then they typed later, because we're just a couple minutes late, they said, excited to sit here in silence with real fans. So it had me cracking up. Shout out Ryan Day's championship beard. That's who it was. This gentleman right here. There we go.
Oh yes. He's been on my channel a lot. I actually made him a moderator because of how often he's on. Yeah, I love the profile photo and the name. I love memed things like that.
Yeah, it's perfect, man. But yeah, appreciate you been on our show before. Appreciate you coming back, man. Love following you on Twitter, seeing all your takes. But I want to start off with this because one of them made me mad, dude. I caught my feelings and I'm like, dude, what's this about, dude? So I want to hear it from you. It's nothing new. Has to do with the cheating scandal, right? But somebody tweeted, the team up north is the only team to go 0-2, and you corrected them, and so you could take it a step even further. Ryan Day is 0-3, and I just gotta know, man, why? What's your reasoning behind? Is it deeper than because it was on the field? Do you not give? Because for me, I don't. With the cheating scandal, I put those out of my mind. I think even if I'm not an Ohio State fan and I subjectively look at two college football teams and their record, and I find out that one team was cheating, I'm not going to count it as a win, but I'm not going to count it as a loss. So I would like to hear, your side of it and where you're at with it.
Okay. Yeah, we're immediately diving into the deep end. Well, that's what this is about anyway. I mean, it's yeah. So my original intention behind tweeting that at that person was actually part of it was also to reflect the part that Notre Dame isn't just 0-2 against Day, they're 0-3. It's like you can't just forget about 2022 overall. Like Freeman has never beaten Day, whether it's this past season, the year before that, or the year before that. And then I was just adding on the Michigan thing kind of as an extra. But I understand that it didn't come across that way because, yeah, like that is this rivalry. My perspective of this, and maybe it's a rationalization, I don't think it is, but I want to at least be honest in saying that maybe it is because we all have our own angles and I don't want to act like I'm God. I'm not God. I'm a human. My thought process is that 2022 defense for Ohio State just made so many mistakes, not just in that game, but against Georgia or against Penn State, that even though I also believe as a Michigan student and fan that, yeah, Stallions did something that obviously gave Michigan a competitive advantage. I just think that, they won at the end of the day, 45 to, was it 23? Was it the score if you count it as win? Because I know you say that you don't. And look, that's I can't necessarily fault you for not, because yeah, it's like Michigan was violating the integrity of the game. Like by the game, I mean not just the game as in the rivalry, but like every game they played in.
Yeah.
My thought process is just in the boat of, at the end of the day, they pulled away. It's not like It's not like one play decided it, like in let's say 23 or even last year or in 16. It was a lot of really self-inflicted errors, I think, by Ohio State, where you look at it, and if they convert that 4th and 2, or if they make some tackles on the boundary, I think that maybe they could have won by double digits. So that's kind of my feeling, I guess, is when I look at some of those big plays that Michigan had, and I'm no expert, so it's not like my opinion's final here. But when I look at those plays that really decided the game in Michigan's favor, a lot of them looked more like self-inflicted errors or misses by Ohio State rather than wide open people. I think it's the Cornelius Johnson comeback. If that tackle is made, Michigan punts it, and Ohio State still has all the momentum when at the beginning of the game it felt like they were up by 40 points and they were only up by 7. And another thing that I want to add is I feel like if we are going to, take all those games apart, and that's understandable, and say like, hey, Michigan had an advantage, let's give all the teams they beat kind of like a pass, I guess, because, they didn't have the advantage that Michigan did. I feel like you have to give like Illinois in 2022, and this probably will be an unpopular opinion, but you got to give Illinois in 2022 and Penn State in 2021. You got to give them almost more of a reason to be mad than those two Ohio State teams, because Penn State and Illinois, one play decided those games. Like for Penn State in 21, that was the Eric All touchdown. For Illinois, it was a missed offensive pass interference call that I can say was missed. So that's kind of my opinion. I mean, again, it may be a rationalization, but I think you can look at it from an objective lens and say that, look, if 2022 Michigan plays like 2023 or 2024 Ohio State in Columbus, and we assume that they're not totally brain dead in game prep for Ryan Day and the Buckeyes, they might beat that team because it was a lot of almost, flukish defensive plays at the time that decided the game. And then you look at Georgia and you look at the Penn State game of that year, and it's like, oh, the defense had issues all year, and this time it's just a better team in Michigan compared to Penn State that got him, and then Georgia got him later in the year with similar stuff.
Yeah, totally understand. I'm about to respond to that. Got to clear a few things up here. Let's see if the sound has settled down on Mello's thing. It sounds like it has. It sounded like somebody was taking off in an airplane there for a second.
My bad. I had my fan
good.
on, and it's a little different when you're on your phone. My computer's back up. I'm trying to start it back up, but yeah. What did I miss so far?
Well, essentially, I asked Sam about his take on, he recently tweeted. He didn't tweet this because he wasn't making the point Ryan Day's 0-3. It was more towards Notre Dame is 0-3. But it made me ask him his take on whether you count those as real losses during the cheating scandal. And, we could go around and round and round for hours. I don't want this to turn into that. We've talked about it till we're blue in the freaking face. But I was just legit curious to hear what Sam said. What Sam brought up essentially was that, definitely in 22, Ohio State's defense was so faulty that he believes, they would have beat them anyway. And I hear you. My response to that would be, before I even get there, I hit the cheating issue. You know what I'm saying? And we'll never know, unfortunately. So, I mean, that's just where I'm at. Obviously, I'm a huge Ohio State fan, and I would like to believe that even if I wasn't, I would have the same stance. But I cannot say that because I am a huge Ohio State fan. But, I would like to think, hey, man, if I didn't have a bone in this fight, I still at least wouldn't count that as a loss towards Ryan Day. I'm definitely not counting it as a win. Oh, scum cheated. Ryan Day's 1-2. No. You know what I mean? It's just, 0-2 then. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever it is. But that's just where I'm at. You know what I mean? But we'll never know, because in the same sense, football is a game of momentum, right? So you can look at the score and you can look at the defense and whatnot, but when the momentum's going for the other team like that much, it's and you're on the other side of that, you're going to do one or two things. You're going to step up and focus for the comeback, or you're going to start making even more mistakes and I think they did that. They were so like disheartened by what was going on but we can go back and forth all day. Mello, do you got something that you would like to add to that?
What year was 22? Was that at in the shoe with CJ?
45 to 23.
That was in the shoe, you said?
Oh, yeah. I remember that game
Was
vividly.
that the G. Scott headbutt game?
Yes.
All right. So, to me, I do think if there was cheating, that one I would factor in the cheating because if you remember the first half, we had a lot of the momentum. We were driving. And then it was the one play, the one that Cade Stover is talking about, where they knew it exactly, that caused a lot. And then there was another play that Scoop breaks down all the time. We scoring that. Def said, the momentum thing, it might have just swung like the Rose Bowl situation, to be honest with you. So, yes, the cheating definitely happened. 21, I think it was more than the cheating. I think it was more like Aiden Hutchins, and they were sick. But the other years, outside of last year, is definitely the cheating.
Gotcha.
So that's just my short, quick breakdown of it, how I feel about it.
Yeah. Like I said, I know everybody probably has more they want to get out and say about the subject. Sam, you got anything to add to that? Or are you ready to dive into what you think Ohio State's going to do this year?
The last thing I would say to that, like about that one Cade Stover play, and I get it. I mean, I made a tweet that was also misinterpreted, but I'm not going to explain what that. It was basically saying, like, from the Ohio State fans' perspective, many of them, like, the whole cheating thing basically cheated them out of glory. And the perspective is, if that didn't happen, correct me if I'm wrong on this, the perspective, the empathizing point is, if not for that, they might have another natty or they win the Big Ten more. Am I wrong there?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of like, I think, a huge part of the whole contention. And obviously, if you're like a Michigan guy, whether that's me or I'd say others, because I don't know if I'm I think I'm a pretty rabid Michigan fan, but I try not to show it, is if you accept that, then the Michigan fan, didn't win all that much. So that's a difficult point of contention. What I will say with that 22 game, is I feel like, Ohio State had all the momentum, and I felt like it was a blowout. Like, when I watched that first quarter, vividly remembering it, I thought, I think they're going to run away with this. But, and I know what Stover's talking about, and as I've mentioned before, and I will always say that, Michigan cheated. It was bad. I wish they didn't do it. I think that, like, whether it's 4th and 2 and Ohio State choosing to pass there when they were running the ball well, or them not tackling well defensively, I mean, I understand it, because it's like, whether it's a 5% advantage or a 50% advantage, you break the rules. I just think that sometimes when people say that, not saying you guys say it because you haven't, but some people sometimes use that to say, like, oh, well, if not for that, we would have, like, done really well. And it's like, well, maybe you would have beaten Michigan, but, like, what about the Georgia game? Or, like, Penn State probably ends up the way they did.
Well,
I'm
with
fine
the Georgia, we wouldn't have played Georgia. We'd have played TCU.
That's true.
That's the difference in terms of that. And I mean, the Georgia game, the defense was bad that year. There's no doubt in that at all.
Yeah. I think that, like, with 23, even, I mean, Stallions he was suspended by that game. Me personally, I think it's much easier for me to defend 23 as a legitimate Michigan win than 21 or 22, because Stallions was on the sidelines then relaying signals, in 23 was gone for a few weeks. But even looking at, like, how that Ohio State team in 23 was much better on defense, but much worse on offense compared to 22. And they went up into Ann Arbor against a better Michigan team and played them close. Maybe that was because Stallions wasn't there, but maybe that's just because Ohio State, I don't know, like learned their lesson from the previous 2 games and actually made critical changes. And on a different day in 23, maybe McCord doesn't throw the pick and they win. So like you said, we shouldn't spend all day talking about it. I think there's multiple angles, and
yeah, there is for sure. Like I keep saying, we could keep going on. I was just legit curious, like your side of it, because rivalry aside, like I ask other people I know from other fan bases about this because I am legit curious. Hey man, can we take some emotions out here and like objectively look at this thing? Because I really want to know what people objectively think. So I appreciate you sharing that, man. We definitely don't share the same sentiment there, but that is perfectly fine. That's the part of college football and being fans that I love, man. The disagreements, the talking about it. And it's cool, man. It's not always fun when everybody just agrees with you. I'm not that type of person that has a blast of people just agreeing with me all the time. Like, dang, man, this is getting boring, bro. Somebody tell me I'm wrong so I can tell you why I'm right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
But anyway, man, new season now. We're coming off a national title, dude. Lost our offensive line coach, our offensive coordinator, our defensive coordinator. 17 leaders on the team gone, and we're the favorites to win the Natty next year. Not that I put a lot of weight on this early of a take on who's going to win the Natty, but I'll take it. I'm not going to complain about it. Before I get into, I just kind of want to hear your thoughts, man, on what maybe impresses you the most this year with this Ohio State roster from the outside looking in, being a fan of our rival. When you look at our team, what are you like, dang, man, we're going to be in trouble against this group and this group and this group?
Well, I can tell you from even an objective standpoint, I think that the wide receiver room is certainly the most impressive. It's a cliche that I think a lot of people roll their eyes at, and I think some people get bored by it, but it's true. Like, that doesn't mean it's not true. Like, it was boring when Alabama was always preseason top 2 or top 3, but they were always a top 3 team. It was reality. The reality is, as long as Heartline will be there, and I've been saying this for years now, even when I wasn't as knowledgeable as I am now, they're always going to have the best wide receiver core, with maybe like one exception. And that, like, you know, maybe it's hard to not fumble over your words, because it would require so much going wrong for Ohio State, and I think so much going right for a team like Texas or Oregon or Miami, or maybe this year Clemson. If like an injury happens, or if a wide receiver, like if Innis doesn't pan out for Ohio State, maybe they'll have a deeper room, but like that's just hard for me to see. And Ohio State still has Jeremiah Smith. So right there, you have the number one non-negotiable in college football. It's like having an extra queen on the chessboard.
Yeah, he counts as 2 for sure.
Yeah, it's that much of an edge. I also think that safety, there's some depth concerns, but I think the starters are going to be really good. In obviously Caleb Downs, but then I'm really high personally on not Malik Hartford, but Jalen McClain. I think is going to be that other starting guy. And then I think linebacker is another area that's really, really good. I think Arvell Reese is going to be a freak athlete. Styles has experience. I'd say those, and corner's deeper than those two, but I think the starters at linebacker and safety are going to be better. So I'd go with those 3, the receivers, linebackers, safeties, and then corners, like an honorable mention. Don't forget about tight end either, though, with Claire. There's a lot to like about the team. I don't think it'll be as good as last year's just because of the seniority and some of the highly talented players leaving, but there's still a lot to like. I mean, it's Ohio State.
Yeah, for sure. Mello, take that over for a moment. I got something in my eye. I got to go get it out. I'll be right back. Sorry, everybody.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, so for me, what do you feel is the strength of Michigan coming up? this season? And where do you have concerns for the upcoming season for your team?
I'd say D-line. I know they lose a lot, but they got good bodies in the portal and they've developed and recruited well there. I think it's very similar to Texas, where they just have like 8 or 9 like rotational guys who could play Power 4 football at a high level, which means they just won't get tired and they can just, reload. That's what I would say. I think the concern is obviously wide receiver. I think that, pardon my dog, it's one of the annoyances of living.
Whose name should we be looking out for? Give us like 2 names that we should be aware of that we might not be tracking in terms of the D-line.
Okay. I'll give you 3 because I think the room is just that deep.
Okay.
I would say Rayshon Bay. Maybe a lot of you know about him. He was the 3rd string D tackle last year. He graded out as high as Kenneth Grant on Pro Football Focus, so I think that's kind of self-explanatory. I think that incoming transfers, Trey Williams and Damon Payne Jr., they're not like elite players, but Alabama, for example, I think has struggled with defensive line development. Michigan hasn't. So if they can find a way to like get him to play at that next level, that will be dangerous. Even if they don't, he's a nice body to have. You'll see him. Trey Williams, I think, is a similar story at Clemson. I think that Clemson, for all the talent they've had on the D-line over the past few seasons, maybe it's D-coordinator wise, maybe it's D-line coach wise, or maybe it's just lack of talent evaluation. It hasn't lived up to that standard that they set in the 2010s. And then an end, 4th guy I know, but still, it's a really good room. I think you all know about Derek Moore, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think TJ Guy is someone to pay attention to as Josiah Stewart leaves. There's another D end stepping up. Looks like TJ Guy is going to be that other D end.
Mello, would you ask him?
Oh, I asked him about the strengths and weaknesses of his team for next year, and then I asked for some names that we should be looking out because he said the strength is the D-line and that they're 8 or 9 deep. He's not the first person I actually heard say that today, so it's pretty interesting. I need to actually do more in-depth look at your roster. My question to you, do you have any concerns with Bryce Underwood, seeing what happened in Elite 11 Vegas and then him not showing up to the Elite 11 finals? Do you think he was ducking that Tavian St. Clair smoke?
I mean, maybe. I think my biggest concern with Underwood is the fact that he's a freshman and he doesn't have the greatest weapons in the world. I've talked to enough people, whether it's like close confidants who watch the sport passionately and are, fans of other fan bases or schools, but I talk to them, or whether it's reading what recruiting analysts have to say. I see a world where he doesn't live up to the expectations. It's hard for me to see a world where he doesn't live to be at least a good or great QB. Like elite, different conversation, because that's never a guarantee.
Yeah.
But out of high school, he's more talented than many QBs in recent memory. And this is coming from me, where I just assumed that every Ohio State quarterback, I think Will Howard from last year was my lone exception to this rule. I kind of just assumed that every Ohio State quarterback is going to be top 10 because that's just what history says and what day is. And ultimately, Howard in the CFP kind of proved me wrong. But in the regular season, there were some ups and there were some downs. I don't think there's any doubt that, like, let's say Sayin is more talented than he is, or St. Clair, or some would even say Lincoln Keenholz was because of his blue chip rating out of high school. And Bryce Underwood, by most services and most people I talk to, none of the people I'm citing are Michigan fans, like a guy who's won 6 figures betting, recruiting analysts. They all say that Underwood's like the best QB to come out in recent memory over the past few years. So I think the concern for him is, does he fit the system? Does he have weapons? Does the staff maybe make him mad because they're not doing what he wants to do, and then he leaves for a school that fits him better? Because it's not like Michigan's the only school that has money. There are schools that certainly have better weapons than Michigan. Like I could go all day naming schools that have better weapons than Michigan at this point at wide receiver. Like it's not Michigan's forte. It never has been under Harbaugh.
Do you think he's just a lock to be the starting quarterback this year?
Oh, he has to be. He has to be. If Keene starts or if Warren starts, I mean, at that point you got to kind of pack your bags, and it's like you're waiting until 2026 again. Like, not saying Michigan couldn't win 9 or 10 games, especially with the schedule they have with mediocre QB play. They'd be asking a lot to win a lot of close games. That would be asking it just, if Michigan wants to compete for the playoffs in any serious way, they have to start him. And I think with the schedule provided, not reaching the playoffs would be a colossal failure. Like, the schedule is not the easiest in the world, but Michigan has a talent edge over everyone they play, except for Ohio State. And if you're Michigan, you get Ohio State at home, and you have a mental edge over them. So there are like pathways for Michigan, and I'm not predicting them to go 12-0. I refuse to do that because I think they're going to drop a game to a better coaching staff. There's a pathway for that, though, because of how everything aligns. And if he doesn't start, I think that's a huge missing piece to what is a big opportunity, because the 2026 schedule is much tougher. You have Oregon, you have Penn State, you have Ohio State. Those are 3 teams that are probably going to be better than Michigan, if not significantly better in power ratings this coming year, and maybe in future years. He has to start. If he doesn't start, there's a big chance the season's a failure before it even begins.
Yeah, it's like you got to have that elite type of play to make up for the areas, the skill position areas, and the different areas of your team. You got to have that piece, someone with that ability to make up for those areas that you're lacking in. So that would make sense. Mello, what were you going to say?
So I think you guys are going to go in the portal and get another quarterback, because I was watching May's Madman today, and they dropped some information that Mikey Keene has a serious injury. So right now they're saying Underwood's definitely starting, and Jaden Davis, or Daniels, whatever you want to call him, JD, is his backup. So it looks like you're going to have to hit the portal, because they're saying it seems like it's a significant injury.
Yeah, I think that would be a smart move, to hit the portal with Keene being injured. I was going to say something and I forgot it. So let me see if I can. Oh no, it's going to be a response to you, Dev. Yeah, like Michigan has to have. I don't think it's elite, but the problem is if you're Davis Warren or Mikey Keene, I don't know if you're capable of great or good QB play in the Big Ten.
Gotcha.
So if you're going to be capable of like top 30 or top 25, which would do, I mean, that'd be a massive upgrade offensively over what Michigan had last year, along with the defense that, should at least be better in the backfield, probably worse up front. You have to have Underwood starting, because Davis is raw. I don't know if he'll ever start at Michigan or contribute much, which is sad, but it is what it is. And then Keene, injured or not, hasn't been a great QB, and Warren obviously has his limits.
Yeah, gotcha. Want to get an outside perspective. You're very knowledgeable about a lot of football stuff and coaches. So outside perspective on specifically the Matt Patricia hire, the promoting Brian Hartline to offensive coordinator, and the Tyler Bowen hire by Ryan Day. If you have much information on that, could you share from the outside looking in, just your thoughts there on each one of those?
So the Matt Patricia one is a pretty, it's a very interesting hire, because on one hand, it could pan out to be awesome. On the other hand, I think it could pan out to, I wouldn't say disaster, because I think the system he's walking into is too good, but it could pan out to just not work, and that wouldn't be fun. So I'm kind of wait and see there. I'm not really an NFL guy, so I try not to act like I know what I'm talking about there. But I do know that his defense is a little bit of a change from Knowles. I know that, just going through positives and negatives, commanded great defenses with the Patriots. Like, that's a positive. but everyone who works outside the Patriot system who was an assistant there doesn't always succeed. Negative. Positive is it looks like he's taken some time off and he's used that to positively change himself. Looks more cheery, lost some weight, smiles more, and those are all things that could be meaningless, but it could also mean that like he's recentered himself and he's actually fixed himself, which we've seen coaches do. The negative to that is that doesn't always work. And when you've taken that much time from being a full-time, year-round play caller, you've taken that much time off, well, maybe you're kind of out of the loop now. And then another positive is, I think several times Super Bowl champion, obviously that's going to be attractive. And it's just, there's a lot that could go wrong. There's a lot that could go right. So I'm kind of in the wait and see camp. And that's really all I want to say on that. Because, there's more thoughts that bounce around in my head, but they're so inconsistent. They're like the two extremes. There's a part of me that thinks, well, maybe everyone's saying he's going to be elite's correct. And there's another part of me that says, yeah, this could be a disaster. So I'm just wait and see. I think that it'll take more than one game to figure out what it'll be too, because of some of the changes in the system as well. Like it'll take time to determine how it goes.
Yeah.
With Hartline and Bowen, I think it's more clear because their employment and track record is more of an alignment with college football. They haven't taken any time off. They don't have the same Hartline is the same positives because he's the best wide receivers coach, but neither him or Bowen have the same negatives that Patricia does with perception, of course. Bowen's an elite recruiter. I am of the opinion that while Justin Fry was not the worst O-line coach in the world, and people interpret me criticizing him as saying that, I don't think he was good for Ohio State. And I think at the end of the day, if there's any position group in 2025 that holds Ohio State's back, it's going to be the one that Fry recruited and developed. And yeah, that's just not good. I think Bowen's going to do better at developing. And I think that recruiting wise, it's obvious that he's better. Ohio State's bringing in bodies. They're bringing in length. They're commits. I was talking to Juck on Bucks about this, and he played offensive line. He played the sport. I didn't. So he offers a unique perspective, and one that I think is much better than mine with high school recruiting. They all look good to him. They pass the eye test. They're big. There's not much to dislike about the Bowen hire at all, because he's just focusing on recruiting and coaching his position group and developing them. Yeah, I think that's good. With Hartline, it's a little bit of a risky move, but at the same time, if he doesn't work out at OC, you can just have day calling plays again. And I don't think that's that bad of an outcome. Yeah. And then he can go back to coaching wide receivers, and his wide receivers do well in every game. So I think the Hartline one on a surface level can look very risky, but the reality is there's absolutely no risk to that hire. It's just upside. If it works out, then fantastic. If it doesn't, the floor is pretty high because you just have Day taking over play calling, and he's a great play caller.
Mello, your thoughts?
So everything we're hearing about Matt Patricia is not good news for the team up north. Great news if you're a Buckeye fan. The players love him. You could tell how they talk about him, the terminology that they use, and I don't want to blow it out of proportion, but we salute and thank Jim for winning a natty with the team. But I actually think it's addition by subtraction. You're going to have better chemistry on the defensive side throughout the coaches. You see how Blaine Bradford committed. So word on the street is that when he came to visit, Matt G, who is Jim Knowles' guy, by the way, and Matt Patricia were on the exact same alignment in terms of synergy, along with OG Walt and LJ. And they just fed him the plan of how they're going to develop him, how they're going to use him over the next 3 seasons. And also Matt Patricia wearing his Super Bowl rings and saying, You need to play this, and this position, and we're going to develop you in all three. That way, we're not just trying to get you a first-round draft. We're trying to make sure you stay in the league for 10 years. So if a team needs that position, you could play there. If they need that position, you could play there. You could also tell by how, like, Lorenzo Styles is talking about, I'm going to play on every special teams that I can, because he's in reality. He knows he's probably not going to be an NFL cornerback, but he could make a career out of being on special teams. You see the positive energy around the team already with that hire, through the players, through the coaches. If they feel refreshed, they're going hard. You see how many teams have players fighting multiple times during spring practice. That's how hard they're going. So I feel like that's a good sign. It's not to where they're injuring each other, but they're getting real chippy. You hear what the recruits are saying about the practices. It's contagious. It's intense. They're getting after it. I think we're in a very good position, and I think you hit that nail on the head when it comes to Brian Hartline and what you said. So I don't even need – I agree with you 100% in that aspect. So I don't really think there's no need to address that part for me.
So quick question with the Patricia thing. So you guys are you're totally like sold, like all in.
Well, let me say
not being able to see them play. From what we're hearing, yes. Off of what I'm hearing and the energy of the players of what I'm seeing. And some of these kids I've seen play since 8th grade because they're from Gwinnett County. Yeah, I'm pretty confident.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me share my thoughts on that real fast. My biggest question, can he transition from the NFL dealing with adults? Not that college players aren't adults, but everybody gets what I'm trying to say here, to the college level. Can he handle that as far as culturally and communication with the players and all that? All signs right now point to above expectations. All we have is what we have right now. You know what I'm saying? And we got some pretty close connections to the team as far as new recruits and even recruits that go in and visit. Their thoughts on how Matt Patricia presents himself, how he communicates. And I was also worried, like, hey, man, I really hope he doesn't come in here and try to just overboard, our defense and throw in all these things and make it too complicated. All signs as of right now point towards that change that he made that you said it might not mean anything. All signs are pointing to it does mean something. But we only have what we have right now. You know what I mean? The real test comes when you're on the field. And as far as the same, so from Matt Patricia to the players, all signs point to good. And I'm not talking about message board signs or I heard this person say that about that. I'm not talking 5 people down the line. I heard something. All signs point Matt Patricia to the players. We're good. We're A-okay there. Matt Patricia to the other coaches. Humble dude. I was worried he was going to come in. He's a rocket scientist, you know what I mean? And from what we have heard from the NFL, the dude doesn't take kindly to questioning, right, what he does. All signs are pointing to that is good as well. Like all these other coaches are talking about good things, and that's not from their interviews. That's from what we have heard behind the interviews, that as well. So as of now, I'm all on board with it. I love it. It's given us the boost in recruiting. If you would hear what some of these recruits on the defensive side have to say about the impact Matt Patricia makes when they show up to these visits, it's very good for Ohio State. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens with them. Only time will tell. Okay, where do we want to go next? Dude, I just hit an absolute. No, I know what it was. Sam, I told you what it was. What was it? Oh, yeah. I remember, I got it now. Yeah, here we go. So, Ohio State fans, me included, from time to time, we won the national title, man. After losing to just everything that Ryan Day dealt with last year, to end up winning a national title, beating who we beat, really got us pretty excited. And then to go get who he did in the transfer portal, to handle the coaching hires like he did, it started to form this thought in Buckeye Nation. that we about to go on a Nick Saban type of run, Alabama style. You know what I mean? I love it. Love the thought of it. I feel the energy there. My question to you, times are different in college football now. It's not like it used to be, in the Nick Saban era when he did this. Is it even possible now for a team to do this, to go on another Saban run? Is it a possibility?
Yeah, it is a possibility. And I think, maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but I think that while your tier 2 and tier 1B teams are closer to your tier 1As than they have been, mainly because your tier 1As are kind of, they're lowering and they're falling down flights of stairs, I would say. Like, I think that 2020 Alabama and 2019 LSU, especially Bama, like, I think 2020 Bama kind of mops the floor with the national champions that come after them. But that's just me. I think that it's possible because if you are Texas, or if you are Ohio State, or if you're Georgia, or if you're Oregon, these teams that are recruiting at a top 4 level, even Alabama, I would say, because they're even recruiting at a high level with DeBoer. If you can find a way to retain the proper players and retain depth, and if you spend a lot of money and you have an elite coaching staff, the reason it's possible is because the only reason it was possible under Saban is because the stars aligned. Not that it was luck, but Saban aligned the stars, and it takes a very unique individual to do that. An individual that some schools will never see step foot and coach their team. So if it can be done then, why can't it be done now? Back in the 2010s, think of Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer's a legend. He never had that type of run at Ohio State. That's a legendary head coach. Think of, oh my gosh, think of, I don't know, Les Miles at LSU. They recruited well. They never went on that type of run. Dabo Swinney at Clemson, they don't have a run like that. So in that era, in an era where you're seeing all of these great teams kind of collect themselves at the top, like 2019, you had Ohio State, you had Clemson, you had LSU. All those teams, all of them were potentially greatest of all time caliber. When you look at the power ratings, the NFL talent, how they performed in games, they were beating people left and right casually. Like, it was nothing. And 3 of them happened in one season. And if Alabama doesn't suffer injury at quarterback, they're probably the 4th that year. If in that era, if in the 2010s, when you just had the teams at the top were beating the crap out of the teams even just a little bit behind them. And now, because of, the rule changes, the 2-minute warning, the shortening of the game with the running clock, the portal, money that allows smaller schools with billionaires to pay for players, all that different stuff. Shout out to you, Texas Tech. I don't know if you'll do anything with it. But if in that era, why not now? Because it was very rare then. It would be very rare now. It would have been rare in the 60s, 70s, or maybe even 80s. I forget when Bear Bryant was at Alabama, or when Woody Hayes was at Ohio State and won all those national titles. Like, it's always going to be rare. It's always going to be viewed from a probability standpoint as next to impossible, like in a given decade, to have that type of run, because in most decades, no one has that type of run. Last example I'll give is Pete Carroll at USC. Mm-hmm. They only won 2 natties. One of them was shared. Doesn't discredit it. It still counts, but only had 2 of them in the Pac-12, in the weak, sad, no one there but USC existed. Actually, Pac-10. Correct me. So yes, it's possible. Is it likely? Absolutely not. But it's possible.
I like that breakdown, but just to give a little pushback, the only reason I do think it's possible as well, but just to take the opposite side, a lot of people, what you're hearing is the reason it's not likely is because of the transfer portal, really, because you can't create as much depth. So if you get injuries, and it's not like you have free agency. So if you get injuries, it could derail everything an entire season. But if you lack depth and you're not good at recruiting or developing, then it's a problem. But that's where the more onus comes on the coaching staff and developing. And that's where I think Day has separated himself. If you look at the coaching hires that he has put around him, not just the only 10, but all the other analysts that can on-field coach and help out, it's a big deal. So like, that's why I think Day is ahead of the curve right now. And you can see it in the recruiting. A lot of the old linemen, that's what they're saying. They're loving the coaches that they brought in, the analysts, and how they're running the practice. So that's why I think it's possible for us to do it, because we've been recruiting at a top 5 level for at least a decade, if not longer already. And now we have the right staff around and the right development pieces to create depth and to keep people there and rotate and keep them here without transferring and hitting the portal.
Yeah, Sam, I totally get what you're saying with how rare it is, possible, but rare, no matter 12-team, 4-team playoff, it's still just as rare now as it would be then. I share Melo's sentiment. And for me, the reason why I think it's possible for Ohio State is because of Ryan Day. And it's one answer for me, and it's culture. Right. We got all the normal answers. You got to have the recruiting. You got to have the coaches. That's known. There's not a team that doesn't know that and that doesn't do that. Right. But there are teams that don't have a culture like Ohio State has. The culture that you saw what they did when that was the most heartbreaking thing I've ever witnessed in college football sports for me, was the loss to our rival last year. Just absolutely broke my heart. Right. If it did that to me, imagine what it did to the players. And then to turn around and come out and do that to Tennessee, and then 34-0, and then double-digit wins throughout that speaks to the culture of the team and everything we know about this year, and the type of recruits that Ryan Day is getting in here, and the type of coaches that Ryan Day is hiring. It's all centered around one thing, and that's that culture. It's that family culture. I ask recruits when we interview them, man, is that real? Is the brotherhood thing real? Is it a slogan, or is it real? The response I get is yes. The second they step in the building, before words are spoken, they feel it. It feels like family. You know what I mean? And that's my answer to why I think it's very possible for Ryan Day to do this. The type of man that he is, it just trickles downhill, and he just won't. The changes that he makes, the list goes on for me, but definitely very difficult to do. And it's very rare, no matter how many games are played in the season. I would say it's a little more difficult now because of the amount of games that are played in the season. But the kickback to that is it's just as difficult for every team doing it. So You're still on the same difficult level. So I'm not sure you could even use that. You know what I mean? But it's an interesting thought to have, and I love thinking about it and hoping it happens. It's definitely a real possibility. But rare.
Part of the reason I think, like, I'm just kind of I'm thinking we won't see something like what Saban did in a while, is I think, for all of Georgia's driving issues, and they have them, and I think that to a certain degree that will definitely affect their culture. But like, they got humiliated by Alabama, and then they what they did to Texas was an exercise in, we don't care that you're more talented than we are. We're just going to outwork you.
Yep.
And I mean, Texas in their 2 games combined did not run for more than 100 yards on Georgia.
Wild.
And they gave up like over 10 sacks. Like, Georgia, what they did to Texas is they got in their head and they just, kicked their what, for lack of a better term. And part of it was schedule, part of it was injuries, and it's going to be very, very, very difficult. I mean, we saw what happened to them. They beat Texas twice, but Ole Miss blew them out. I think Ole Miss was the SEC's version of Ohio State. They just weren't as talented and didn't have the same culture. So that's why they lost more inferior games and got left out of the playoff. But they got destroyed by Ole Miss, and then they get in the playoffs and they get outplayed by Notre Dame because at the end of the day, they were in truth, they were that thin after everything that happened.
But a lot of the thinning happened to be their two best wide receivers have charges of beating one a pregnant girlfriend, another one just trying to get the girl out of his house, which turned out to be false. She dropped the charges and said she was lying. She was scorned because he asked her to leave. But terrible. At the end of the day, he was in that position. So now if you're saying leave, I'm calling my coach, and then I'm calling the cops, and I'm getting her out. I'm not putting my hands and physically removing her. They make a lot of dumb decisions, and that just validates what Devin is saying about the culture part. So, like, Georgia's culture, they feel like the culture – and Georgia, I live right here. So, for Georgia, their whole thing is get the best talent. Doesn't matter. They're not really checking your personalities. If everybody fits and thinks alike and have that synergy, get the best talent, put them on the field. Let's go out here and win games. If we're winning, we're good. But if your players keep getting arrested and they're unavailable because they're sitting in jail or they're getting suspended, then that goes back to a cultural thing. So they lost their two best receivers, and then their starting three receivers were in the top 10 of drop passes all year. So that's 33% of the top 10 was their starting receivers. Their O-line wasn't that good, which this year is still going to have the same problem. They had a fumbling issue in the backfield. Their D-line wasn't that good. Their secondary took a major step back, which they're going to have problems this year. I do agree with you with Ole Miss. I thought they had the second best roster, and that just speaks to Lane Kiffin as a coach, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Last year made me root against him, man, because how do you lose to Florida and how do you lose to Kentucky with that talent? Someone could shoot back and say, well, what about the Michigan game with Ohio State? Like, yeah, that's fair, but like Kentucky was in a league of its own in terms of being awful. And then Florida's Florida, and Georgia was, well, not Georgia. They lost to LSU on the road. Yeah. Like that's not a good loss either. They didn't have any good losses.
At one point in time, I literally predicted Ohio State and Ole Miss in the Natty last year. Like that's where I thought it was going to be. And we got Chris Lane coming in with the super chat, man. Thank you for the $5. He said, Sam, is our titles less impressive because of our loss in the game? Someone asked him, and he just wants to hear your answer.
Okay, so do you want the, how do I put it? Do you want the we're comparing ourselves to other national champions answer, or do you want the what answer?
No,
are you all
not that one.
Okay, yeah, because you don't want to hear that answer.
Not that one. I don't want to hear that one.
Okay,
I want both of them.
Okay, then I'll give you both of them. The whole Mickey Mouse Natty stuff is stupid. So if that's what he's referring to, then that's just blah. Like it's a different era. LSU's 2007 national title that isn't somehow vacated because they lost 2 games. Like that's not how this works. At the end of the year, number one is number one. They win it all. We now have a playoff dedicated to that. So it's pretty clear who the best team in the country is. And look, they have a lot of NFL players. They were a dominant team. The power rating said so. The film said so. So from that perspective, from more of a year by year, more of the we're just treating every year as its own, which is valid because seasons change, teams change, coaching staffs change. No, it's not less impressive, especially when you factor in like the historic postseason run they made, which will be replicated by several national champions in the future, but right now is a thing of its own because of the changes. If you're going to try and be one of those people who wants to see who the best team of all time is and make a list of that, you are probably not going to have Ohio State up there. Honestly, because of that Michigan loss, like it was so bad. I'm trying to remember of all the games that any national champion has played in recent memory and lost, it has to be the worst. It has to be like, and that's not even from the way they lost. because, Alabama blew out Georgia and Ohio State lost to Michigan by a field goal in almost a flukish way, it more so has to do with how the eventual national champion played in that game.
Yeah.
Like that, when the clock hit 0 and Ohio State went 10-2, and that was the end of the regular season, I genuinely thought to myself, oh my gosh, there's a chance that this team returned all of their seniors, made as many coaching staff upgrades as possible just to field the worst regular season Ohio State team under Day. Now, thankfully, they didn't do that. But the fact that was even possible, and they have 2 losses, and it's the first 2-loss team since 2007 LSU, I think like you can't compare them to 2001 Miami or 2020 Bama. Like that loss specifically, and combined with the Oregon one, just excludes that from being part of the conversation. But that's me. And if anyone says that I'm saying that because I'm a Michigan fan, I don't think 2023 Michigan would even compete with 2001 Miami or 2020 Bama. Just saying.
What about 23 team up north and 24 national champs?
Oh boy. I'm going to go Michigan winning by a field goal just because the power ratings say that Michigan team was slightly better. Again, subjective because it's comparing one year's power rating to another's. Mm-hmm. So it's not invalid to pick Ohio State. But when you try and compare them, Michigan, they didn't face the same schedule, but also when they played Penn State on the road in 23, who was comparable to Oregon this year, they game controlled them. They didn't lose to an 8-5 team. And while they didn't have that same type of playoff run, you saw how they, dominated Washington, game controlled them, like how Ohio State kind of did Notre Dame. And then their game against Alabama was kind of like Ohio State's against Texas, where it was a battle and it wasn't how the winner wanted it to go. But at the end of the day, they won. Ohio State won it a little bit quicker because they didn't have to go to overtime. But I would take Michigan slightly. It's not by much, though. Like, that team was good.
Yeah.
Good. And I think if I'm not going to go there, but I'll say if the O-line was healthier, I think it'd be a lot easier in my mind to say, yeah, okay, they could win. Because they definitely are better at wide receiver and safety.
Yeah. I would take Ohio State, but only by 3 touchdowns or so. You know what I mean? Only like 3. Did you like that? The little pause.
You led me right into it. You said 3, and I thought you meant field goal and 3 touchdowns. Nice.
Yeah, good man. Yeah. Again, conversation that could go back and forth. I was interested in your take on it.
I have one for you, if you don't mind.
For sure.
24 Ohio State or both of the Georgia teams?
Want my truth?
Mello can answer this better than me.
22, we would smoke them. They almost lost to us, and we had tight end and a wide receiver playing running back. Marvin Harrison went out the game. They would have no answer for JJ, who was better than Marvin Harrison. Our defense is night and day from that team. Caleb Downs is the X factor. How they used him after the Oregon game is just incredible what that guy can do. He's just the eraser. Lathan Ransom was taking heads off. So I think we smoked 22 Georgia. I don't even think it's that close. I think it's a double-digit win by more than 21. The 21 Georgia team, now that's very tough to pick because that defense was incredible. Their defensive line was insane. So I don't know if Will Howard has a lot of time to even drop back for wide receivers to get open. And they had pretty good secondary as well. That one to me is more of a toss-up. I could see either team winning by 1 to 3 points either way. So, but I couldn't pick for that one. But 22, I think we beat them by 21 plus.
Yeah, the first one, I got to know if we got Josh Simmons and Seth McLaughlin in the game or not. You know what I mean? Because I like Mello. What Mello said there. We got them. I might think a little differently on it, but I think it's a close game. I share Mello's sentiment in that regard. We've been on for about an hour, but I just got to ask you. You can give me a yes or no, just a quick answer here, and we'll get this thing wrapped up. Kept you on here for an hour already. Is Ryan Day's mental block gone after winning a national title?
That is a question I cannot answer.
What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
What do I think? I think right now, yeah, I think it's gone.
Yeah.
But what happens when the 2024 season is clearly done and you're dealing with 2025? Like, what happens when you're on the road? Like, are you only talking about the Michigan game, or are you talking about in general? Because there's two ways to answer.
No,
he only has
team up north
against
team up north game. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So what happens if Bryce Underwood pulls a read option, the defense falls for it, the crowd goes bananas, and Michigan's up like 10-0? Or what if it's a close game, fourth quarter, and Ohio State's ahead, but because you haven't won it in so long, you start running and running and running, you punt back, and then Michigan finds a way to break a tackle because that's just apparently how it works now. Maybe they get away with a hold like they did last year. Then what happens?
Yeah.
Like, I would say now, whether he does or doesn't, you definitely have the illusion that it's gone. I don't know if it actually is. And I would say that it's just it's such a tough question.
Yeah,
it really is, especially since I think, like, the defense, for example, I got to stop saying like so much. It's something people my age do, and it's insane. But the defense made the necessary changes after that Oregon game, like well before the Michigan game. They changed, they improved. Mm-hmm. I think against Penn State, you saw what Ohio State actually did in the playoffs. I think you saw that in November against Penn State. Mm-hmm. I just think there were some misses to wide receivers. Like, Smith was open several times and Howard just missed him.
Yes.
And then I also think Penn State was just that talented at certain points where they kept it close, like Texas did. Like, them and Texas were on a similar level, like below Ohio State, but they were really good, had defensive non-negotiables. Mm-hmm. And obviously Ryan Day called the dumbest game plan against Michigan of all time. So if that changes, then they probably win. But of course, you asked me what I think. I don't have a perfect answer. I would say right now you have the illusion of it. And I would say when it comes to November and when it comes to the game, I would err on the side of no, it's not over, because it's been made very clear how much the fan base cares about it. There's a whole countdown clock for it, and there's still pressure. I mean, it's Ohio State. If Day enters that game like 9-2, for example, and they have to win that to reach the playoffs, all that pressure is going to be right back there.
Yeah.
So
now I got to respect your answer, man, just because I know where I was at this year, and I never thought in a million years this year would happen. So therefore, I like how you say the illusion, because as of right now, I am convinced it's gone. Why? Because of the way Ryan Day is operating, simply the press conference that he is doing, the whole 9 yards. But I never would have thought in a million. Last year, I would, if somebody said, Devin, you can come be the head coach, and I have never played football. I've never coached football. You can come be the head coach for Ohio State this game, but you got to put up everything that you own, your pet raccoon, everything. If you lose it all. If you win, you can double it. You get 2 pet raccoons. Your money gets doubled. I'm going to go coach that game. I'm just going to do it. You know what I'm saying, dude? I'm going to toss it up to J.J. Smith every play, and we're going to freaking win, dude. But, again, I got to respect your answer, man. But right now, all signs do point towards he's at least a new person. He's something has been lifted off his shoulders. He seems to be a little bit more at ease, a little less stress.
The national pressure's gone.
Yeah, some pressure is gone, and we hope that bleeds into that as well. Like, hey, you know what I mean? We're good to go. But we'll see. That's how I feel. Mello, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I got a real quick point. So to me, I think the game plan switched when Will Howard got concussed, because that's exactly what happened when he got hit. My thing, what I think where Coach Day made a mistake, and it's hindsight now, he put Will Howard back in the game. He should have kept Devin Brown. I think you would have saw a different game plan. I think they switched it up because he got hurt and he was playing concussed. I think they played him concussed because of what happened in the 22 Peach Bowl with Marvin Harrison when he got concussed. And then he went out and that whole game just flipped. So I think he wanted to win it that bad. And he was like, I think we're good enough that we could beat it. But, well, if you look, that was Will Howard's only multi-interception game. It was his lowest passing percentage game. And it wasn't the best defense he went against, contrary to belief.
No.
So I think him getting hurt was the main issue. But I do agree with you. It could be an illusion. And depending on how the season plays out, if Team Up North is a lot better than what anyone expected, that's going to add another amount of pressure, even if we're as good as we expect. You know what I mean? Because I can't see, at least from an offensive standpoint, I can't see your team being worse than it was last year, honestly. Like, and if it is, then the whole coaching staff needs to go. Like, the entire department on the football program has to go.
Yeah. Oh, if it's worse, I'm calling for everyone to be fired immediately.
Yeah, because that was crazy.
So bad.
Wow, bro. Hey, dude, I'm telling you, dude, I don't even, dude, put Lincoln Keenholz in the game. I don't, dude, put Brandon Ennis as quarterback.
He played quarterback in high school.
I know. Put him in. That's where I'm at. Like,
yeah,
I don't that. So because of that, I can never say for sure whether it is gone or not. That's like third or fourth on my prayer list for the year. Every morning I wake up, that's on there. But we'll see what happens, man. Sam, we appreciate you coming, man. Yes. You got something to add, man. Any final thoughts? Let us hear it.
So there's a few things relating to what you guys were talking about in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, how do I put this? Let me just say that Saban, for example, great coach, wonderful, the GOAT. His one kryptonite is that he never, ever beat a ranked Auburn team on the road. It never, ever happened. So I'm painting that picture to say, I don't know if that was a mental thing. I imagine it would be, because half those Auburn teams he lost to on the road were not as good as other teams that he beat. I don't exactly know. But it's like rivalries are crazy, and even the best sometimes let it get to them. That's something I wanted to add. And the same goes for like Michigan. I mean, let's use Lloyd Carr, for example. Ended his career not being able to beat Ohio State no matter where they led. Or I never knew this about the 2002 edition of the game. Apparently Michigan outgained Ohio State by nearly 200 yards and somehow lost. Like, I looked at that box score and thought to myself, wow, like that was interesting. But the other point that's attached to that is about Ohio State and Day going on a Saban-esque run. And I think this ties into the game a little bit. There are some things that I think everyone needs to say before they can say whether that's going to happen, because it's possible, but whether it's actually going to happen or not, it's a whole different story. Because I think there are many programs who have that potential, but not all of them, and maybe none of them, will achieve that feat in the next 10 or 15 years. I need to see Ryan Day play his game and do things his way.
Yeah.
And I cannot see anything like what happened last year against Michigan or Nebraska happen again. Can't see that. When Saban did that, or had games like that, like in 2023, where they played very competitively with USF, where a crappy Arkansas team nearly came back and beat him at home. You kind of got the sense, maybe not that he lost his edge, but that things just weren't working. And then he abruptly retires, and it's like, oh yeah, like he was done. I also need to see how like this season and other seasons where they don't have high returning production pan out. We've seen from Kirby Smart, for example, where in 2023 they don't return a lot. You know, they return a lot on offense, but not on defense. And that team took a bit of a step back, enough to where they played some inferior competition close, lost to Alabama again, but that team was highly power rated. But what about last year? Where last year they looked pretty rough, in pretty rough shape, pretty bad. We haven't seen that from Ohio State, but what I will say is that last year, if the 4-team playoff exists, and this is a stupid game for last year, they won it all. They're national champions. It's a team I respect. It's a team actually by the end of the year I kind of enjoyed watching because they were actually fulfilling their destiny and living up to their potential. It's hard to not like winners. But if the 12-team playoff exists, the narrative probably flips from this potentially being the best program in football, which I think in recent memory it has been. Right now, I think there's a pretty good chance it is. It probably flips to every year Ryan Day disappoints us more than he did the year prior. So how do the errors of 2024, which the team had some, how are those corrected in 25? Is the O-line better? Is corner, for all the talent it had last year, they had issues. Is that better? How does Patricia pan out? How does Hartline pan out? What's quarterback look like? And not all these things have to be perfect because Saban won a title with Jake Coker. You know, Saban reached the playoffs with Jeff Sims. No, actually, that's disrespectful. He reached the playoff with Jalen Milroe and beat Georgia with Jalen Milroe. He somehow got that 2021 team to beat Georgia and nearly win a natty when objectively that team had a lot of issues. And that was probably the beginning of the end for him at Alabama. But it's just a point to say that whether it's next year or several years, this will be a year-long process. And I think with the new system of college football, you could see Ohio State have like a last year Alabama year where maybe they barely make the CFP, or maybe if more things go wrong than you want, they miss. Like, last thing I'll ask, because I know I'm probably overstaying my welcome, but I really enjoy this. Like, I really enjoy what you guys do. It's an awesome show.
Brother. Appreciate you, man.
Don't you think 2021 Ohio State goes 9-3 with last year's schedule? With that defense? And with some of the issues they had on offense, too? Because, like, there was a really good offense, but still, like, Nebraska, Penn State, like, held them in 21. Don't you think with that tougher schedule last year, there's a chance they lose 3 games? Or am I insane?
No, I think there's always a chance. There's always that possibility. You know what I'm saying? It's hard for me to, being the time of night it is, to go back and recollect, you know what I mean, the details of that. But I totally understand what you're saying. And this whole time you're talking, like, the points that you're bringing up, they can't be argued. You know what I'm saying? If it gets switched to a 4-team playoff, things do look a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of good points. It just shows you what the game of football is, man. It's a game of inches, dude. A game of inches. You know what I'm saying? Inches decides what's your legacy. Literally in football, bro.
Boom.
You're talking about the 21-22 season?
Yeah, I'm talking about 21, where Kerry Coombs' headset was unplugged and they replaced him with a special teams coordinator. I'm not talking about 22. I don't think 22 goes 9.
You're talking about the team with Chris Olave and G5, Garrett Wilson?
I'm talking about the team who nearly lost to Scott Frost. That team. That's the team I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I can't recollect enough of it. You know what I mean? Right now to go into details on that. You know what I'm saying? I definitely understand and agree with the point that you're making. You know what I mean? Changes have to be made. You can't have
I could answer it a little bit because I think you're talking about the Garrett Wilson one. You're not talking about the year where we played UGA in the Peach Bowl. You're talking about
No. I'm not talking about that team. I'm talking about the prior team.
Yeah, no, I don't think they lose 3 games, man. That offense was I don't see a defense that really stopping it on a regular, but it's going to be shootout. They have to win shootouts because, I mean, Kerry Combs was awful. He might be the worst DC of all time, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was bad. The point I on one hand, I really do agree with that. In fact, like maybe they go 11-1 because I don't know if like that 21 O-line had so many NFL players that I don't know if Michigan's defense stands like a chance against that offense, for example. But
yeah,
the point I was trying to make is like Alabama was not a terrible team last year, but they went 9-3 because the schedules are harder than they ever have been, and there's parity in the sport. For example, the point I was making there is like Nick Saban went 9-3 in 2010. Kirby Smart last year in an alternate universe goes 8-4, and he's a top 2 coach right now.
Yeah.
So in the future with Ohio State, don't be all I'm saying, whether it's to fans or whether it's to you guys, like don't be surprised if there's a tough schedule and the stars align. You have what many would like say is, oh, this is like the worst Ohio State regular season in decades. But at the same time, the following year, you go out and win the Natty because that's the new reality of the sport. Like it is harder now than ever to go 11-1 or to go 12-0. It's harder because of the, like you said, the portal taking away depth.
Yeah.
It's harder to retain talent. And I'm just saying that as a tale of caution because even last year, like entering the season, and look, I'm an objective college football guy, I think, and I also happen to be a Michigan fan. From both perspectives, both of them, entering last season, it made no sense for Ryan Day to be on the hot seat. After the Michigan game, it did, but it still didn't make practical sense to fire him because of how many games he was winning. And I think that was proven when, you lost 2 games, but you won in a 4-0 run, dominated everyone, and won it all because Ryan Day's a wizard in the playoffs. It's just to say that don't be perfectionists, I guess is what I'm saying to certain elements of the elements of the fan base. Like even Saban had a 9-3 year where they may not have made the 12-team playoff, and it's Saban. And that was in an era where it was easier to retain talent and you really didn't have the portal, and redshirting worked differently. Yeah. So there's going to be more ups and downs. And I think for a lot of fans, even Michigan fans, but I don't know if it'll hit this year because the schedule's easier. It's the same thing with like Penn State fans. They get a pretty workable schedule. Penn State does. Oregon does.
Yeah.
But whether it's those schools or whether it's Ohio State or Alabama, the new reality is like, because of all these different things, you got to somewhat adjust your expectations. Like this is it's a new era. You can, whether you want to take it in, I think, a way that's a little bit bad for the sport and say you can't afford to lose 2 games, or whether you want to take it in the more competitive way and say it's just more likely because of super conferences, so we just have to be even better than we were and kind of face the adversity head on. It's just going to be harder. So if he wins as many natties as Saban and he has the same dominance Saban had somehow over the next few years, that might even end up being more impressive because it's harder to retain talent and super conferences exist.
So I want to clear one thing up real quick.
Yeah.
In terms of what I'm talking and referring as a Saban run, I mean, like, he might win 2 more natties before his contract ends. Saban was in a natty almost every other year. I'm not saying that. I don't know if that's even possible. in terms of 12-team playoff. So, like, we have to switch our framework on when we are saying Saban-like run or a dynastic run. I'm not talking exactly how Alabama. I don't know if that's even possible, to be honest with you, even no matter how good you are. Now, do I think Ohio State should be in the playoffs every year? Pretty much, for the most part, I do. But I think what I'm saying is I think before his current contract runs out, Ryan Day will win 2 more natties.
When does it run out?
He just got an extension. It might be, it's either 32 or 36. I'm leaning 32. I'm going to check it right now. I think it's 32 though.
Okay. I think, and I've tweeted about this before, I think that Ohio State's probably going to win it all in 26, just looking at how the roster's built and assuming they don't lose any starters to the portal or have premature NFL draft declarations. I mean, seeing what happened in 24, they obviously have the money to bring everyone back that they want. Like, if they want you to come back, they'll bring you back. And there's just, I mean, the team is so young. This is almost what I was alluding to when I was talking about what I was talking about. The team is so young that things could look like bad by Ohio State standards this year in terms of a regression. Then the following year, they go 16-0 and win it all and are just awesome just because of how things happen to align. Like, this is a really, really young and talented team. And you give all of them a whole year of playing time, and then they all come back the following year minus Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles. That's insane. Like, that's unheard of. You don't have that anymore in the modern age of college football, really.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that have changed, and that term that people throw around, the Mickey Mouse national title or whatever, will be non-existent for anybody in like 5 years. Nobody's going to be saying that because the game's changed, man. I mean, they're talking about 14-team playoffs now. You know what I'm saying? So somebody's going to be in that situation. The roles will be reversed, man. College football has changed for sure. But, fellas, I'm about to just crash out on this desk right here. I've been up since like 6 a.m. and on YouTube for, I think, 8 hours of the day. But, Sam, dude, it's always awesome having you on here, man. I love our discussions, dude. It's really nice to be able to sit down with somebody and like objectively talk about things and not get emotional because, you know what I mean? You root for her, you root for her, and we root for her. We like, man, it's refreshing, dude. So I enjoy it when you come on here, man. Excited to have you on again in the future. But any closing thoughts, Mello or Sam?
Sam, thanks for joining us, man. It, like Dev said, is always awesome talking to you. I feel like I could talk to you for like another 5 hours and whatnot, but I definitely got to get you back on here, man. It was awesome. I'm sorry I had a little bit of technical difficulties in the beginning. My computer decided to reboot and update on its own, so I had to wait for that to take hold. But it's always awesome talking to you. Seriously, I hope you could share your wisdom and perspective and temperament to the rest of your fan base. It would be amazing.
Nice one there. I'm not going to respond to that. But yeah, certainly. Yep. Yeah, it's always a pleasure coming on. And I would just say I'm looking forward to coming back on again. And you guys reach out to me whenever. And no problem on the technical difficulty. I actually haven't uploaded a video on my channel in going on a few weeks now. We're resolving some things, and I think when we reboot, it'll be better than it ever has been. But yeah, stuff happens. And I have an Alienware. I have a wonderful computer that I love, and sometimes it is slow, and I just want to like throw it across the room. But I don't do that, and neither should you.
Yeah. All right. We appreciate you for coming on, man. But on that note, chat, we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Go Buckeyes. OH.
I-O.
I-O.